Rise and shine. Pour yourself a cup of coffee and tune in to Good Morning Aurora. News, weather, and really cool interviews. Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m.
Good morning, Aurora. Good morning, Aurora. Good morning, Aurora. Hope this message finds you guys very well. It is Monday, January 25th, 2021, and we have just, if you tuned in to the live Mondays, Wednesdays, and Friday mornings, we now do the live morning news for you guys, and you could check that out on our Facebook page, Facebook Live page. If you've not had the opportunity to, please do so. Also, keep in mind that we've got a lot of great initiatives coming up here in the city of Aurora. We've got a great interview coming for you guys after this quick message. So I want to give a few shout outs real quick and then get the heck out of here so we can give you this great interview with a very good person, but I'm not going to give you any more of a spoiler alert. So first things first, keep in mind that Aurora Business United, Cotton Seed Creative Exchange, and Windy City Game Theater all have great things coming up for you very shortly in the next upcoming month. So stay tuned for that, and stay tuned for all the other good things that are going to be happening here in the city of Aurora. February is Tai Chi for the Chinese New Year with Aurora Public Library. Registration is required for that. The next initiative will be growing your business with LGBTQ friendly practices, and that's also brought to us by our friends of the Aurora Public Library, and registration is required for that as well. The library has been having a great slew of entertainment going on since COVID started, so please check out what they've got going on, follow their Facebook, and stay up to date on what they've got. And Thursday, March 18th at 7 p.m. is Civic Education Township Government, a continuing partnership with the League of Women Voters of the Aurora area. The series will focus on township government and its role in policymaking. And I would be remiss if I didn't tell you the times of the other two things. Friday, February 12th, Friday, February 12th, 10 a.m. is the Tai Chi for the Chinese New Year. And Tuesday, February 16th at 7 p.m. is growing your business with LGBTQ friendly practices. Congratulations to our friends of the Aurora area CVB. Two Illinois Park and Recreation organizations have presented the CVB with a Community Service Award on behalf of Fox Valley Park District. The award recognizes the CVB for its outstanding contributions and unselfish devotion for the advancement of parks, recreation, and leisure in the community and state of Illinois. So shouts out to our friends of the Aurora area CVB. Enjoy Aurora. That's really good stuff. And the Aurora Art and Market started on Saturday. Did you guys have a good time at that? Hope you did. That's going on every second and fourth Saturday at Society 57, 100 South River Street. And that's going all the way until May 22nd. And with that, that's the news. We're going to get out of here. Stay tuned to the Facebook page Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings for live news. And with that, that's the news.
Okay. Good morning.
Good morning. Good to see you. Thanks for sitting down with us today.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Pleasure to be here.
So for our listeners and for our viewers, let us know who you are, sir, and where you're from.
My name is Raymond Hall. I am a 45-year native of Aurora. Aurora is my home. I came to Aurora at the age of 15. My family moved here from Chicago, and I've been here since then, obviously. I have spent the last 40 years on the east side of Aurora.
Okay.
And originally when I came to town, I lived on the west side of Aurora. I lived at 833 North Randall Road.
Okay.
I went to West Aurora High School. I'm a graduate of the class of 1978 from West Aurora High School.
Shout outs.
And then at some point we moved to the east side of Aurora.
Okay.
And since then, I've been back to West Aurora one time, and during that period, I was there for maybe a year. And then I relocated back to the east side of Aurora, and I've been there ever since.
Okay.
I've had the opportunity to live in, I believe I counted 5 different wards in town.
Wow.
Randall Road address would be the 5th ward, currently the 5th ward. I also lived in what is now the 4th ward, which would be Concord Avenue, which is southeast side of town,
okay.
Right near Bartwell School.
Right.
That would be 4th. It may have been the 3rd ward at the time that I was living there.
Okay.
I spent 9 years in the 7th ward.
Wow.
And I've spent the last 20 years in Ward 1.
All right, but you haven't been to the 2nd ward.
I have not been to the 2nd ward.
That's the ward I live in.
Oh, okay. I have not been to the 2nd ward.
Only that one, yeah.
Yes, and I forgot. I lived in the 3rd ward in 2 different locations. So maybe we can take that and make that a second, okay?
So that's Auroran, or excuse me, the Roots of an Auroran.
Yes.
Both sides of town. I mean, a lot of people who've been primarily on one side of town, so it's good to see that you've got 2 different flavors. Now, with that being said, would you say that the west side and the east side have their own kind of distinct flavor?
Well, we have to put that in a historical perspective. And so the years that when I first got here and we lived on the west side of town, obviously the demographics were different.
Right.
The racial demographics were different, and so was the racial demographics on the east side of Aurora at that time.
Right.
And so did they have their own flavor? Absolutely. One of the things that I've always noticed is that some of the individuals on the east side of Aurora seem to have a complex as to not being recognized in the city. I think as a teenager, it was seen as West Aurora had economically were in better conditions. And this is just my perspective. We're talking about from a young man's perspective at that time.
I've heard that a lot on this show.
Yes, and East Aurora at that time was certainly had more diversity, racial diversity,
Right.
than West Aurora did. And so, did they have their own flavor? Absolutely.
Right.
And when I came to town, the first thing that I learned was that the river divided the town. And so there was this east-west competition thing that was going on. And I never actually got into that. And I did not simply because, as I said, I have so many friends. My base originally being West Aurora, you will see that there are many individuals that know me on the west side of town. And many individuals that see me think that I went to East High and think that I was originally from the east side because I've been there so long.
Right.
And I've made so many relationships on both sides of town.
Right.
And so, do they have their own flavor? Of course they do. But times have changed, and then to add to the mix, we have the Fox Valley region, wards 8, 9, and 10, which have come along in the last 40 years or so. We've seen the growth in that area of town as well. So
now those were the areas that were cornfield?
Absolutely, absolutely. My time in Aurora, because of my job, which was 36 years with the city of Aurora, I had a bird's eye view and had an opportunity to see the growth, the exponential growth in wards 8, 9, and 10. And what was really unique about that was the water department, a water maintenance department that I was a part of. During construction, one of the first things that goes into the ground are the water pipes and the sewer pipes. And Aurora is uniquely set aside, if that's a good term, but Aurora is the only community that actually makes their own water taps. So each residential building, commercial building have water taps that come into them. And so in other cities, the village or the city will allow contractors to put the water lines in and make the water taps. But in Aurora, we did our own. So I literally helped make many of the water taps for the homes that are in the Fox Valley region. When I started in 1979 with the city of Aurora,
Very cool.
we were working Saturdays because the area, the Fox Valley region of town was growing so fast due to Fox Valley Mall.
Right.
And so we were literally making water taps on Saturday because they were trying to get the buildings up as fast as they could go.
Very cool.
And so I've seen everything from the White Eagles and the Stone Bridge area, from one end of town to the other, and everything in between. So I had a bird's eye view of that area, and I think that I'm once again uniquely have a perspective of that side of town, although I've never lived there.
Right.
To have some historical perspective. And yes, there were cornfields. There were cornfields everywhere.
Yeah.
I recall when the east side of Route 59, which is Naperville,
Right.
before Fox Valley Mall and after Fox Valley Mall, I believe I could go all the way into the 90s or mid 80s when there were still cornfields on the east side of Route 59.
Holy cow.
And as I watch and I hear people talk about Naperville and how great of a community it is, and it is a good community, but I always say to them that what you see of Naperville at this point, from my point of view, is basically like a 40-year-old town.
Gotcha.
Aurora, Illinois is the anchor of the western suburbs. We are the anchor and always have been. People came to Aurora for work, primarily for work. It was a huge manufacturing town.
Right.
And so, no offense to Naperville, but I like to refer to them as downtown Disney because they made a city and it was built around Fox Valley Mall.
Right.
And here's a perspective. Fox Valley Mall, one of the major reasons that Fox Valley Mall wound up in Aurora is because Aurora was able to bring water to that area. Naperville was not.
Really?
Yes. And so when I say that Aurora is the anchor, there would not be a Route 59 corridor if it had not been for the city of Aurora and the Fox Valley Mall, because everything began to explode around that mall.
Right.
Yes.
As it would in a high traffic area with north to south corridor. Yeah, go all the way to Joliet in one way or go.
Absolutely.
Growing up, what impact did your mom have in your life?
What impacted? Wow, how much time do we have?
We got like 50 more minutes.
Well, okay. My mother, from the time that I can remember, first of all, just being a loving parent, a caring and a nurturing person, taught me as a young man. I'm an old school guy. I was raised with the yes ma'am, yes sir.
Right.
You didn't say what.
All that. Yeah.
Nothing of the sort came out of my mouth. I was two things that she always made me do. Sunday was going to be church.
Right.
And when I went to school, you were going to go to school and you were going to behave in a way that was reflective of my upbringing.
Right.
And so that was very clear. My mother was not an educated person, but she had the Spirit of God in her, and she implanted that in me, and I think it was reflective in the way that I did things. And so my mother, our family, we never had a car, even when we moved to Aurora. So that was really different for me because we used public transportation in Chicago. And so when we came to Aurora, not having a car, there was a lot of adjustments that were made. But I watched my mother ride public transportation in Chicago. She worked in Winnetka, and she would get up at 6 in the morning, and sometimes she wouldn't get home till 6 in the evening. And she would ride the CTA up to Evanston and transfer and go north, and then she would come back home. Once we moved to Aurora, she began to work at the Eldon State Mental Hospital. She would ride the PACE bus from Aurora to Eldon State Hospital. And so I watched her. What I picked up really most from her was her work ethic as well. One of the reasons that we came to Aurora was because my brother came here after college.
Okay.
And he was hired to work at Carson Pierre Scott, which at that time was in the Amy Morton building, the Morton at Stope and Galena. Stope and Galena. That used to be Carson Pierre Scott. And so the reason that we came to Aurora was one day when my mother was going to work in Winnetka, she was hit by a car. Broke her hip, she was out of work, and my brother had, my niece and nephew were kids, and my brother said, Mom, if you and Raymond would move to Aurora, we'll pay your rent, and if you would babysit the niece and nephew. And so we came here. My mother actually asked me, she said, Raymond, would you like to move to Aurora? And I had come to Aurora a few times just visiting him, and I got to go to places like Funway and different, you know, it was like a fun weekend when I would come to Aurora.
A little trippy trip, yeah.
Yeah, it was. And so I realized that when we were living in the city, how much we did not have. The things that were not available to us. Many of the people that I knew never left the neighborhood many times.
What neighborhood is this?
I lived at 49th and Michigan in Chicago. And so just the exposure of coming to Aurora, so by the time I was 15 and she says, what do you think? This is the offer that your brother have made. What do you think? If you want to stay here, we'll stay here. If you want to go to Aurora, we'll go to Aurora. And at that time I made the decision. I said, let's do it. Let's try it.
Right.
And she said, okay. And so here we are. And one of the things that I've learned is that exposure will expand the mind and allow you to see some things that you've never seen before. And so that's how I live my life, and that's how, still to this day, when I encounter young people, I'm always trying to find out what can I expose them to that they have not been exposed to before.
I spent the early years of my life in Harvey, Illinois, and now I look back and I think about like that, you know, the mentality and, you know, the youth of the 49th and Michigan area from that year. Wow, what does it say that just 30 miles from where you are seems like, you know, a trip, a getaway, a vacation, right?
Yes.
What does it? I guess this isn't necessarily a point of discussion. I just, you know, maybe a point of reflection. What does it say, right? I think about the state of African Americans. I was telling a friend of mine about a great book. It details the migration of African Americans prior to the First World War and the Second World War because of manufacturing jobs that were available in Detroit, Chicago, northern cities. So African Americans came in those large waves. And it's like, man, right? A whole life awaits and is changed by just a 30-minute drive.
Absolutely.
Crazy.
One of the things, if I could share with you, is kind of humorous. One of the cities that I had heard about when I was in Chicago was St. Charles. And the only thing that I knew about St. Charles, Illinois was that there was a youth home there. And there was a kid in the neighborhood that was like a neighborhood legend, menace to society,
right.
whatever. And he would disappear and they would say that he was in St. Charles.
Like, oh.
Right. And so when I heard the name St. Charles, I said, I don't know where St. Charles is at, but if Durkee is there,
right.
I don't want to be anywhere near there. So,
I knew, yeah.
Yeah.
I knew that. What does that say? I knew that too, at 13 years old. A place I didn't know until I grew up and, you know, got to go through St. Charles and everything like that, right?
Yeah.
I just knew that the youth homes in St. Charles. Amazing. I mean,
what does it say when young people that age even have to contemplate a Department of Correction
right,
center?
right.
My children didn't grow up thinking about St. Charles as being where the youth home was located at.
Yeah, my son is 8. He's not going to grow up thinking about it. It's a good feeling.
Absolutely, it's a great feeling. It's a great feeling.
So now you're in high school in West Aurora. You are one of the Blackhawks at this time, going to West Aurora High School. What's life like for Raymond Hall at this time?
Life is good. Life is good because of the relationships that I was able to create. See, living on the south side of Chicago, as you know about Chicago, ethnically, the city is divided. And so I went to school with all black students for 9 years.
Right.
And so when I came to Aurora, it was the first time that I'd ever been in school with a Caucasian student. I had never actually seen a Hispanic person other than some caricature on television.
Speedy Gonzalez or something like that.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and something of that sort. And so when I came to Aurora, it was like, wow, this is a whole new world. But at the age of 15, I recognized that there were some opportunities here. Because as I mentioned earlier, my brother was an employee at Carson Pierre Scott, and he was able to get me my first job. And so at the age of 16, I worked in the shipping and receiving department at Carson Pierre Scott.
Oh, snap.
Yes.
We
so
coming up.
It's amazing when you have an opportunity to earn some money from a legal perspective. And one of the things that I believe is that many times, especially for individuals that grow up in poverty, the way that you are first introduced to a way to earn a living or make money is impactful upon you.
Absolutely.
So,
a paycheck is the greatest crime stopper
absolutely.
that ever existed.
Because poverty is,
Ever existed.
crime is driven by poverty. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And so that is one of the other things that I try to, over the years, is to gather in youth, mentor them. If I had an opportunity for some employment for them, I made that, a conscious effort to do just what I'm thinking about. I thought about myself. I didn't realize we were poor until we came to Aurora.
Right.
I really didn't.
Right.
And then I figured out, hey, somebody's been lying to me. That there's just tremendous opportunity. And so that's why I'm here. And I love Aurora. There's no doubt about it. I'm unapologetic about it. And there's some things that are going on, which we can get into a little bit later.
Sure.
That I wish we could change.
Right. When most people think about their past, or not their past necessarily, but their upbringing and what they're doing now, what of the learning phases of your life, working and all that, what of that do you carry with you still to this day?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that again?
Yeah, what of the past, work ethic and your past story and your past experiences, what of that do you retain with you today?
I retain all of it. I really do. I'm still a man of faith. That is a central part of who I am. I am, because of my mother's work ethic, I'm a grinder. I'm hands-on, boots on the ground type of guy.
Yeah.
My experience in working at the water department, maintenance department, put me in the bottom of a ditch in mud, and sometimes
Figuratively.
Figuratively.
Right.
Literally.
Right.
No, literally.
Yeah, both.
Both. And so, getting dirty, getting my hands dirty, doesn't matter. I'm a grinder. I do what I have to do.
So, you graduated high school in 1978.
Yes.
First job was at Carson Pierre Scott. What year did you join the water department?
I joined the water department in 1979.
Okay.
And how that came about was there was a young lady by the name of Debbie Hopkins. She was a dean's assistant at West Aurora High School. And shortly after high school, I was walking actually through downtown. And I ran into Debbie at the corner of Lincoln and Galena. And she said,
Right up
hey.
the street, right there.
Yes, right around the corner.
Throw a rock and hit it.
I ran into Debbie and she was like, hey Ray, how things going? What are you doing? And I said to her, I'm looking for a job. I'm currently looking for a job. And she said, well, my dad's a supervisor at the city of Aurora. His name is Marion Hopkins. And you should go and put in an application and maybe you could put his name in. And I didn't think much about it at that time. I knew nothing about city employment. And so some months later, the city of Aurora used to advertise in the Beacon News on Sundays. And so one Sunday, I'm going through the want ads and classifieds, and I see an ad that was about one by one ad that said, City of Aurora, Water and Sewer Department, taking applications. Something, I may be paraphrasing exactly what it said. And Debbie came to mind, and I said, wow. So it had the date that they were going to be given the civil service exam. I went down, applied for the job, and they told me when the civil service exam would be. I came in, I took the test, I passed the exam, and they established an eligibility list, and within 6 months, I was hired.
Right.
And so I think I took the exam in February of 1979. And in August of 79, I was called and offered at that time, I believe they called it seasonal position, not temporary.
Sure.
So the definition of seasonal now in the city of Aurora would be 120 days.
Right.
And so they said, well, we have a position because there's some vacancies in the department. We have some people that are on leave of absence. And if you're interested, you know, we'd love to have you to come and fill that position for 120 days.
Uh-huh.
I accept it. I'm 19 years old. I need a job.
Yeah.
I accept it. I come in. And the amazing thing that happened, one of the gentlemen that was on a leave of absence, when he returned, I was supposed to, my last day was supposed to be December 17th of 1979. And he came back from a leave of absence in Europe, and he decided that he no longer wanted to work for the city of Aurora, that he wanted to do something different.
Right.
And he resigned, and at that time, the rule said that if you're occupying a position temporarily or seasonally, and that position happens to come available full-time, and no one from the union applied for that position, the position became yours. And so when this gentleman resigned, I stepped right into the position.
Just like that.
36 years and two months later, I retired.
There it is. Congratulations.
Thank you.
There it is. Working for government, working within government, what did you learn about teamwork?
Teamwork. Well, what I learned, let's go back to 1982. At the age.
The year I was born. Crazy.
Okay, make me feel from there. Make me feel.
My bad. My bad.
So first of all, what did I learn about teamwork in the water department? We worked in crews. There were 3-man crews, and so I was a laborer. There was a person that was called a maintenance worker 2, that was primarily could operate some heavy equipment, drove a dump truck. I drove the pickup truck, and then there was the class 3 operator that was the machine operator. So right from the beginning, we worked as teams to accomplish jobs. And what our job was to maintain the existing infrastructure, and we did a little bit of new construction in certain areas. Well, in 1982, there had been a strike, I believe, in 1979, and in 81, I believe, we had a contract that had come up, and I wasn't very happy about some of the things going on with the contract, and I went to the meeting, and I was kind of barking from the back of the room
as a union member.
As a union member.
What union is this? This
is ASCME, American Federation of State, Municipal, and County Employees.
Gotcha.
And so someone said to me, one of the gentlemen that was on the union board said, well, if you don't like the way things are going, then maybe you should run for office. And I took that challenge.
Yeah.
And so at the age of 22, I ran for president of the union. And I was elected president of the union at the age of 22. Teamwork. We built a team. We began to, in negotiations, I learned that everything was about teamwork. I was nowhere near the smartest person in the room, but I knew who it was, and that person was on our team.
Right.
And so we developed a relationship. There's a difference in a public works union and a labor union. The biggest difference is they have what is called a no strike clause.
Right.
And so during negotiations.
Public works unions.
In public works unions,
right.
Yes, we have. Most government employees are not legally able to strike.
Right.
And so we always had to, no matter what the situation may have been in the collective bargaining, we knew that we had to continue to work.
Sure.
And so that's a huge difference because we serve the citizens of Aurora, and you don't get to say, I'm staying home.
Right.
And I'm not coming to work. And so we built that team up, and from that point, I began to build relationships. And years later, I went to some union training, and I found something out. And during that training, they said, you're not elected to be president because you're the most popular person. And I was like, really? I thought I was kind of popular, you know? A little bit, just like a little bit. Yeah. I'm not.
Like what?
They said, so what's the reason? They said, because people are elected to leadership positions within the union because they look at you as someone that will stand up and fight for them.
Right.
In situations that they may not have the courage nor the desire to do that. And so I was okay with that. Okay, you see something in me as far as leadership goes that says that Ray will do the right thing, Ray will stand up for us, Ray will enforce our collective bargaining agreement. And so from that point on, you know, I just continued to do what I was doing. I represented every member of that local and anyone that knows me. As a matter of fact, at some point I became a frontline supervisor in 1992, so I believe I was a union member in 1993. I believe I was a union member for 14 years.
Okay.
And when I became a supervisor, a frontline supervisor, they actually gave me a plaque, which is unusual. Most people say, oh, you're a turncoat, you're getting out of the union, you're gonna be a manager, and that type of thing.
Right.
Well, the union actually gave me a plaque in 1993 for my service to the local.
That's good.
And yeah, and I was proud of that. I'm still proud of that.
Right.
That I didn't go away mad, and I took an opportunity. A lot of people said to me, don't get out of the union, they'll fire you, you're gonna set yourself up, you know. But I stepped out on faith and said, no, I'm gonna do my job, and I'm gonna become an asset to the city, and at the same time, I still know where I came from. And so I always treated the union members with respect. I always said to them, whatever agreement that the union and the city of Aurora comes up with, I will abide by that.
Right.
I was not one of those guys always looking for a gray area or some way to come back at the union members. And
right.
Anyone that worked for me will testify to
that. And how long were you union president?
Oh, wow. I was union president from, well, I would say all total, boy, I haven't actually did the math. I was 22 when I became union president. And there was 1 year that I may have been vice president. I decided that I would step back. So we'll say somewhere in the range of 10 years. Wow. Yeah, about 10 years, yeah. I actually participated in the negotiations on 3 different contracts, and typically they were 2 years or 3 year bargaining agreements. And so just before I became a supervisor, I negotiated the last contract that I was involved in on the way out the door. Nice. And so I can say to many of the union members, that, hey, some of the benefits that you have are as a result of what I did when I was as union president.
What's Aurora like at this time? What's the downtown area like?
Wow, let's go back to the 70s when I got here. 3 movie theaters, furniture stores, 5 and dime stores, Walgreens, Robert Hall, this building.
That's the 4th time I've heard of it.
What would that be? The southwest corner there.
Right.
Was Robert Hall. I think that's where everybody went.
Tracy Duran, shout out for the history. Yeah. She sent a local author.
Oh, okay.
Friend of the show. Sent us a picture after, I think, somebody's interview. Might have been Saul Folks. Somebody. I've heard that 4 times. I'm not playing.
Yes.
Sent us a picture of this Robert Hall at the corner right there.
Mm-hmm. There was a Raleigh bike shop. There was, as I said, 3 movie theaters. That would include the Paramount, the Tivoli, and the Isle was the name of the 3 theaters. West Aurora Plaza had 2 movie theaters in West Aurora Plaza at that time.
That's Galena.
Right. And west of Eslon,
Yeah,
between Eslon and Orchard. And so the downtown was thriving. And the communities that surrounded Aurora came to Aurora for their entertainment and everything else.
Second largest city.
Second largest city. Aurora was the place to come to.
Right.
And so people came here for their entertainment and to do the things that they did. They came to Aurora, as well as work, primarily work.
What were the movies playing in the theaters at that time?
Which Way Is Up? I still remember at the Isle, it was packed out for Richard Pryor, Which Way Is Up?
Of course.
Long before Eddie Murphy played 3 different roles in one movie,
yes.
Richard Pryor played 3 different roles in Which Way Is Up? And so I'm sure there was other movies, but the one that sticks in my mind was Which Way Is Up?
Classic movie.
Classic.
All right. So you are running for Alderman-At-Large.
Yes.
For the listeners and the viewers, first of all, what does an Alderman-At-Large do?
Okay, so let's make a distinction. The city of Aurora has 10 wards, and each ward has an individual alderperson.
Right.
And that person represents the constituents of their individual wards. The constituents are able to call them, whether it be for quality of life issues, whether it's roads, the lights in the neighborhood. It could be crime issues. It can be numerous things that they could call them for. However, the city has 2 Alderman-At-Large. And the Alderman-At-Large, the difference is the Alderman-At-Large represents the constituents of every ward within the city.
Sure.
And so the individual aldermen are able to call upon us if they need some assistance with something, but at the same time they would be able to call on me individually if they feel like I'm the person that can get something done.
Sure.
And if I can expand a little bit on that, my job with the city, I've served the citizens of Aurora from one side of town to the other my entire career at the city of Aurora.
Right.
And so the Alderman-At-Large, for me, falls right into the wheelhouse of what I've been doing since I've been here.
It's like working for the water department, just not messing with people's water.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Not at all to put a spin on what the Alderman-At-Large actually does.
Customer service, just you name it.
Exactly.
You name it.
Aurora has 2 aldermen for large?
Yes.
Alderpersons for large? Okay.
Yes.
That's something that I found out later. I was, or I have been familiar with Mr. Jenkins, who was the Alderman-At-Large, but I didn't know that there was 2.
Yes.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yes.
Why is there 2?
It's the second largest city in the state of Illinois.
Of course it's going to be 2, man. I didn't.
That would be a bit much.
Yeah.
Maybe I can handle it.
Yeah,
but,
sure.
However,
it makes sense now.
Yeah, I'm not sure with that with the background and the history of that of why there are 2.
Yeah, I'll look that up. Now, the elections are April 6th. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. What's it like? Is this your first time running for Alderman-At-Large?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Now, you were on the East Aurora School Board before.
Yes, I was.
When was that?
I first ran for East Aurora School Board in 1999.
Okay.
I served one term.
How long is the term?
4 years.
4 years, okay.
And my brother that I spoke of in 2003 became ill, and it happened right around Thanksgiving, and I had to file my petitions to run again because my term was coming to an end.
Right.
And I had to file again, and I had to make a choice and think about what what my brother did for me. And I thought, well, my sister-in-law may need some help with him. And so I had to make a choice, and I made a choice on behalf of my family.
Right.
And unfortunately, he passed away, and I had not filed again. So I move on, I go, and I'm doing other things within the community. And in 2010, I was approached by some individuals that said, hey, there's an opening at East Aurora on the school board again, and we think you would be great to fill that position again. And so I interviewed for the position, and I was selected amongst the candidates to fill a temporary position, which was for 1 year. I believe the current board president was leaving town, and so it opened up a position. The following year, I believe 2011, I was on the ballot again, and once again I was elected to the board in 2011 till 2014. I'm sorry.
Okay.
And so that was my second term. So altogether, I was on the board for 9 years. The last year that I was on the board, I was elected to be the board president for the last year. And one thing that I can say to you about that last year, I found out that being in that leadership position is a difficult position. Some people...
School board president?
School board president.
I bet.
Yeah. I believe actually that school board members hold one of the most important positions in any community, because we make decisions that impact our youth.
What was a rocky or tough decision going on within the school boards?
Well,
was there any polarizing issues, for example?
Oh wow, there's plenty of polarizing issues, whether it's taxes, needed expansion, the redrawing of the boundaries for students to decide what school they may go to, and things of that nature. Right. Are really volatile.
I bet.
Because if you live across the street from Waldo School and we redraw the boundaries, and all of a sudden, instead of you going to Waldo, you have to go to Cowherd on Farnsworth, as a parent, you're not happy about that.
Not at all.
Because at that time, East Aurora did not have transportation for the students. So that put an undue burden on the parents, or they could do like I did as a child. We walked.
Right.
If it was a 3-mile walk, we walked in 3 foot of snow, below zero.
With no shoes.
With no shoes, uphill. Yeah. And my mother would put Vaseline, as a kid, put the Vaseline on your face to block the wind. Yeah. And so you could walk. But at the same time, issues like that were really volatile. And so, and you have to keep in mind that as a school district, the school district levies probably the highest portion of property taxes.
Of course.
And so with that, you're always having to deal with the property, the taxpayers and the property owners within that district.
Certainly.
And you
all feel entitled to having their voice heard.
Absolutely. And they have a right to do that. And so you have to keep in mind that you have the working class families. You're going to have students within the system, and you certainly have to keep in mind that you have the seniors that are on fixed incomes. And so as you have to be mindful as you're doing things, as you're levying the taxes and deciding what programs are going to go on, that these are going to impact everyone that pays the taxes. And so that's probably a couple of the really hot issues.
Were you responsible for that bad pizza that they serve at schools? Is that who I got to talk to? Can you make the crust thicker?
Yes. I will own that. Because we do. We have food service contracts.
Sure.
So we have to decide that.
Sure. Now, what's canvassing and getting to know folks been like, trying to get yourself out there as Alderman-At-Large? What's that been like during the pandemic?
It certainly has been a challenge, but fortunately for me, because of my community involvement since 1990, when I say community involvement, civically becoming involved in working with different 501s and charitable, other charitable organizations,
right,
and not-for-profit organizations, I do have some name recognition within the community. I do have what I would call a base constituency. That would be those individuals that I grew up with on the west side, the folks that I've come to know on the east side, my church family. And so, but with COVID, it has certainly been a challenge. However, I mask up. I've gone to the homes. I don't have I have a team of leadership, but I don't have a team of foot soldiers to go out and do those things. And so I acquired 642. If I'm off, nobody call me on it, I'm off by 10. I think it was 642 signatures. And out of that 642 signatures, I definitely drove to individuals' homes, got their signature, and that way I made sure, one, I knew that those individuals were registered to vote at that particular location. I had some other individuals that helped me acquire some other signatures, but I was out there grinding. As I say, I did it myself, and I'm still doing it. I'm out putting up signs at 5:30 in the morning. I'm doing a lot of things on my own, but I can do it. I can handle it. The cold doesn't bother me. I'm a water and sewer worker. I worked outside.
Right.
Water and sewer, hey, you gear up.
Yeah.
You put your cold weather gear on and you get out there in the cold and you do what you have to do. Worked in the rain, the snow, you name it. I've been out there. And so I just, COVID didn't stop me. However, if COVID were not here, you have the traditional ways of going about meeting with homeowners associations and different neighborhood groups, the churches that may or may not allow you to come in and speak. And so let me address that. This, when I say the churches, I want to address this from this standpoint. Personally, I never liked the idea that politicians were able to show up at the churches, and in particular African American churches, at election time. I don't have a problem with them coming, introducing themselves. But to show up at election time, and then we don't see you anymore until the next election cycle, that's always bothered me. So with COVID, I was kind of happy that, hey, you're not going to be able to do that any longer. You're going to have to go out here, work on your own. I didn't stand at the early voting sites. There's no problem with that because some of the candidates did that, but I wanted it to be personal. I have relationships with individuals. I wanted to go in. I may have been able to get more signatures than I acquired if I hadn't gone to see some of the folks, some of the seniors from my church that hadn't seen anybody because they hadn't been able to go to church any longer. And I sat there with those individuals and I had conversations, and sometimes those conversations got long because, as you can tell, I can be a little long-winded.
No, that's all good. This is the show for the long-winded.
Hey, listen, I'm working on being a little more succinct in what I say, but I have something to say. And so I've built relationships with individuals, and everywhere I go, when people meet me, they feel my spirit, whether it's a stranger or not. You can tell when someone is genuine in their message and who they are. And so I've never had a problem building relationships with people.
I'm glad you brought up and planted that flag in the conversation about the petitioning for votes around election time at church. Should politicians petition for votes at church amongst church communities at all?
Absolutely. The individuals at church, they pay taxes like everyone else. They have the same concerns that everyone else has. If it were up to me, those type of forums would always take place maybe on a Saturday afternoon. If you have, the opportunity, it wouldn't be Sunday morning, but I don't lose any sleep over it. That's just my personal opinion. But absolutely, the faith community should have something to say in an election. They deserve to get to know the candidates just as anyone else.
What church do you attend?
Main Baptist Church.
Main Baptist. All right. And I think that's also where I had seen your yourself or different works and things like that. Perhaps in some of because they have a Facebook page.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
I follow it.
Yes.
I'd like many a pick.
Yes.
I've shouted out on our news roll for many. We've been doing this for a while now.
Okay.
We're coming up on a year of the show.
Okay.
So we didn't check out Main Baptist tonight about.
Absolutely. Main Baptist is the oldest African American church in the city.
That is right,
Yes.
and it's also one of the locations for the change initiatives that are taking place.
Absolutely.
As well.
Absolutely.
Speaking of which, what did you think about those change initiatives?
I believe that they're necessary in many ways. Now there's different phases of it, obviously. However, it's a situation that just needed to be addressed.
Sure.
So.
All right. So before we get to before we wind it down.
Okay.
I would like to know from you what kind of music you listen to.
Oh man, that's a great question. I listen to a lot of genres of music. So first thing, I'm 60 years old, if it matters. But I must say,
salute.
But I must say that I'm 60 years old and hip hop is 40 years old.
Yeah.
Now, not what they call, the explicit language.
Sure.
But hip hop is 40 years old. But I grew up on R&B music, and sometime around the age of 13, 12, somewhere in there, my friends and I on the south side of Chicago started to listen to rock and roll. And so I listened to rock and roll. I'm not a big jazz guy, but I love the blues.
Mm-hmm. Oh, of course, yeah.
And gospel music. And so I think I'm pretty well rounded when it comes to music.
Okay.
And I said, I used to tease some of the people that I knew to say, I'm probably one of the only people that that have been to a Led Zeppelin concert in 1973 at the Chicago Stadium.
That must have been a hell of a concert.
It was a hell of a concert, if I might say myself.
I would have loved to have gone to a Led Zeppelin
Absolutely.
concert.
That's the only rock and roll concert that I've ever been to, but I hang my hat on that. And so I am a big fan when when it comes to rock and roll. And then when I moved to Aurora, at that time, the new thing was funk. Mm-hmm. And so when George Clinton and Parliament Funkadelics came out, I kind of moved away from the rock and roll a little bit, to over to P-Funk and that genre. But I still listen to it. My not my iPod, but in my car. Man, you will hear a lot of things. Everything from Amy Winehart to some Zeppelin, to some Marvin Gaye, to some the New Edition, to
New Edition.
No Kurt Franklin, but
you don't like Kurt Franklin? I can take him or leave him myself.
Yeah, and that's what I'll say.
Yeah, I can take him.
He doesn't sing, so I'm more like the Mississippi Mass Choir type of gospel.
Yeah.
Some of the contemporary music is a little bit more, but consider my age and what I was raised on, more of hymns and things like that when it came to gospel.
No, yeah, I even though I'm younger, I spent 90% of my youth in the care of my grandmother, who was in her 70s and 80s when I was a child. So to that point, and Kirk Franklin specifically, I prefer my gospel music to be more of the
sung.
Yeah, the right, exactly. GP, are you with me?
Okay.
Don't really.
Doesn't move me.
Power to the brother, but I like it to.
Right.
I feel you. I understand where I understand where you're coming from. When you say that, yeah, it's only supposed to sound really one way, and it's so hard to entertain gospel music specifically.
Yes.
In another fashion, infused with hip hop and we shaking it and all that. Not really doing it.
Not doing it.
Even though I'm young, I cannot stand when I see these youngsters coming into church with the jeans. Y'all wearing jeans to church, that was forbidden when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. I don't know about you, but jeans and gym shoes in church.
Well,
y'all coming in there with the, you got the hat on, and I mean, for heaven's sakes.
Well, let me address that. Yes, I was raised where I had 3 sets of clothes.
Oh.
I had school clothes.
2 of them was for my cousin.
Right. No, I had school clothes.
Right.
I had outdoor play clothes, and I had church clothes.
You're right.
And when I got home from school, I had to get out of those school clothes because they had to last. And I'd get into whatever I was going to wear out in the neighborhood. However, I believe that I'm okay with come as you are. I certainly am. And it's taken me, and I say that, but however, most of the time when you see me at church, I'm going to be at least business casual.
Sure.
Because that's how I was brought up. And I feel comfortable in that. And what bothers me is sometimes you hear younger individuals that say, I used to hear things like, oh, you guys think you're all bougie and you're better than us and you wear your suits and that may be the case for some individuals that in church, but that's not the case for me. And so I say you come as you are because I would rather that you be here than be out.
That's true.
And there's absolutely nothing about my suit or my coat or my tie that's going to get me any closer in my relationship with God than you and your gym and your pants and your gym shoes. And so I'm all for that.
Yeah, never let it be said that we looking down on the brothers.
Absolutely.
That
if you
true.
choose to be there, I'm glad that you're there. Come as you are, and I'm okay with it. Okay with it.
I retract my statement. I was just talking about the whoopings I would get.
Yes.
My personal whoopings.
Yes, I understand.
So let me see. I asked you about church. I asked you about school board. I'm making sure we dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's. Of course, I would be remiss. I was on this page. What does America mean to you?
What does America mean to me? I'm going to use one of those not old, but it's not a cliche, but I've never traveled back up. I have been to Canada.
That's nice.
But I have never been outside of the United States, and so this is all that I know. And America has, just like I described Aurora, America has the potential and has been the greatest nation in the world. It is. Do we have some issues? Absolutely, we do. Does every nation have some issues? Absolutely, and we could be greater if we begin to face some of those things and work together. But overall, this is my home, man. This is all I know. So don't tell me to go back to Africa. Don't tell me to go anywhere else. This is my home.
Right.
And it is just like the city of Aurora. I've been fortunate and I've been blessed to have employment opportunities, to be exposed to a few more things than other individuals may or may not have. However, that does not make me any better than them, any different than them, and I recognize that there are individuals that have not had that opportunity. I didn't do anything special,
Right.
to wind up with those opportunities. It is what it is. But no, I just see America as my home. And do I try to build relationships and bridges with the different individuals, ethnicities, genders, all of that. I see the potential that is in America to really be great, and that would be to be just inclusive of what we have. We have to accept the fact that America does not look like it looked when in the 60s, okay? Everyone has to accept that whether you're Caucasian, African American, Hispanic, when I was a kid, it was, if I was competing with a job, it may have been, not a kid, but as a young adult in Aurora, let's use Aurora for example, it may have been primarily black and white individuals competing for those jobs. Well, because the racial demographics have changed in the time, for my daughter, my 25-year-old daughter, she has to compete with other ethnicities for jobs, and I always say to her, you will never be a victim. You will compete for whatever you have. The playing field is not going to be level all the time, but that will not be an excuse for you to not compete. But the competition is much larger.
Right.
The competition is much larger these days, and one of the things that I learned working with the United Way allocation committee at that time in the early 90s, as the demographics were changing and the Hispanic community was continuing to grow, that a lot of the agencies we went to, they needed bilingual individuals because of the social services that were needing to be put forward. And so one of the things that I used to tell my daughter, you need to learn to speak Spanish, because you're going to be in competition, and nobody's going to give you a break because you don't. It is what it is, and and she didn't listen to me. But however, I'm just saying, I've accepted the fact that what we see has changed over the last however many years we want to put a number on it, 30, 40 years. And we have to be willing to get out there, put our best foot forward, try and educate ourselves. We can do all of those things. We can educate ourselves, we can be the best person in the world, but that does not guarantee you anything.
Not at all.
Not at all. You have to get out and do such as what you're doing, I'm always glad to see young people, younger men and women that are out there trying to make their own way. We can choose to be a victim, but I say when you choose to be a victim of society, you become stuck. Where you're at.
That's true.
And you have to.
You
have to move forward and continue to grind away. I don't say you don't lay down. If there's issues out there, whether they're social issues or whatever they may be, someone has to continue to grind away at those issues. But at the same time, life is not waiting on you. One of the things I used to do was in the morning I'd get up and go in my basement, and it would be a quiet time. And I would sit there, and I had a clock on the wall, and I never realized it until I started to do that. And I would sit there in the dark sometimes with my eyes closed and kind of meditate. and I would hear the clock ticking. And it struck me one morning that time is moving on, Ray, whether you're doing anything or not. And I'm saying to every individual that's stuck and thinking about how everything used to be, I would love for Aurora to be like it used to be. I mean, as far economically,
Sure.
to be the way that it is, but it's not. So the reason I'm running for Alderman-At-Large, one of the reasons, main reasons is I want to be a part of a solution to begin to make this city, we say second to none. Aurora is the second largest city in the state of Illinois. I'll reiterate that again. But many times we operate like Mayberry.
Oh, yeah.
We still operate as
Doesn't
though
feel like it sometimes.
like we're a small bedroom community, but we have some big city issues that need to be addressed. And so I want to be a part of building some relationships. Sometimes I wish the river could go away. Sometimes I wish that there were not 5 school districts in town, you know, because it seems as though that we've become divided. But I'm one of those people, like I say, that
We
know
have 5?
Let me make sure here.
131.
We have 131, 129, 204, 308.
Oh, I didn't know that.
308, which is Oswego East. And then we have Batavia School District on the north side, north of the tollway. It's all Batavia School District.
Aha.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, and actually we have some portion, a very, very small portion, that is a part of Canelan on the far west side, the far, far west side.
Right.
Yeah, that are part of Canelan School District.
Yeah, that's right.
So I wasn't counting. Was that 5 or I think at least 5?
Man. Knowledge. All right. The show ends on a positive note.
Okay.
What is your message for the people of Aurora today?
My message for the people of Aurora is that I am a native of this town. At 45 years, I've lived the majority of my life here. In this race for the Alderman-At-Large, I am the only candidate that can say that. I believe that experience matters, and I believe that I have the experience from working within the government, working for the government, to be able, on day one, to be able to sit down in a seat and not know everything,
Right.
but not be a novice at the same time. I was superintendent during the recession, and those were some difficult years, just as this pandemic has been a difficult year. This is a time for someone that can come in that has been a, quote, emergency manager, not a crisis manager in some ways. I've worked through the Great Flood of 1996 when there were 19 inches of rain, 16 inches of rain that fell in 19 hours or something like that. I've worked blizzards, you name it, I've been out there. I've did tabletop exercises for and certified in Homeland Security and terrorist activities, and if a natural disaster were to hit Aurora, I'm familiar with those things over the years. I've had some training at the National Fire Academy in Maryland. And so this is not the time for the novice, nor is it the time for individuals that may have personal agendas. I am all about the citizens of Aurora. I represent the citizens of Aurora. I would love to continue to do that. I believe that government at the local level is set up just as it is at the state as well as the federal level. And what do I mean by that? I believe that the city council should be an entity unto itself. Our job is to represent the citizens of Aurora. We work with the administration. The citizens of Aurora elected a mayor, and the mayor should have a vision for the city. However, the city council is the governing body. We make the decisions about where the dollars will be spent, how they will be spent. And so sometimes I believe that relationship has gotten convoluted where some of our council members may believe that their job is to work for the mayor. I don't believe that, no matter who the mayor is. We work for the citizens of Aurora, and I've been doing that, and I will continue to do that. As the former mayor said to me when I was superintendent of the water department, I want you to work for the alderman. No, excuse me. I want you to work with the alderman. When they call you and ask if they have an issue from one of their constituents, I want you to work with them, do your very best, make sure that things get taken care of. But he said to me, remember, you work for me. And so I'm saying, I work for the citizens of Aurora,
Right.
not for the administration. I worked for the administration in my past life.
Right.
And so we need to, I am not a yes man. I can be very detailed, especially with my background as a union representative. I take documents, I look at them, I understand the budget. I will not look at 1,200 pages of a budget, but you also have to know where the meat of that budget is. You have to know what you're looking for. And when you get a novice, what happens is the existing council members have to take them, lead them around, show them the ropes. When somebody calls and they have a problem, they have to say, oh, well, who do I go to for that? I have those connections. I have that network. I know those individuals that are hardworking, and I want to make sure that I say that before we're done here today. No matter what individuals may think about certain individuals, City of Aurora has some hardworking individuals on the front line as well as in administrative positions. So I believe in what they're doing, but I also believe in that as a council member, we're responsive to the citizens of Aurora. Many of those individuals live in the city of Aurora as well. But we need to work with them, give them give them the resources that they need to be able to do a good job. Mm-hmm. But you can call me up and say, hey, Ray, can you help me with this or help me with that? And I believe that my 36 years of operational experience within the city of Aurora will be unique, because the others, Alderman-At-Large, Mr. Jenkins, was a part of economic development. He's one of the big reasons that we have the outlet mall. But he doesn't have the operational experience that I have. So when someone calls me about some issues with property standards or something like that, that's my pond.
Gotcha.
I know that.
Right.
And so I just want to continue. And I believe that Aurora has afforded myself and my family a fantastic living. And I just feel like I want to continue to give back. I owe the city of Aurora some things. I could not be sitting here in this position, even talking about this, if the opportunities that Aurora had afforded me as a young man were not presented to me.
Right. All right. Well, we wish you luck in your journey to Alderman-At-Large.
I appreciate it.
Are April 6th.
April 6th, and early voting has started actually for the township elections.
That's right.
And so, if I might add one more thing, is that we need to, a lot of the voters are only concerned about the federal level. We need to be concerned, politics are local, as they say. So we need to know, who is it that controls my tax dollars? Who is it that has my children in their hand, meaning the school board or representative? Who is the state's attorney in the county?
Right.
Who is the sheriff in the county? Who is the state representative for our area? Who is the senator that represents our area?
And what do they believe in?
And what do they believe in? And if you don't have any clue and you have no idea who you're voting for, you should not be voting for someone that you cannot, at least say, I know this person stands for this, but I'm a person of integrity, and I believe that I will certainly be, and this is not about luck. I think I'm going to work and I'm going to grind hard, and if the citizens of Aurora are looking for someone that's going to represent them all the time, I'm that person.
All right. And with that, we appreciate you coming on to the show. We appreciate our time with Mr. Hall. Thank you guys out there for watching and tuning in to the second largest city's first daily news podcast. We wish Mr. Hall a good luck on his journey, and we will see you all tomorrow for another great episode. Be blessed and be well. Peace.